The St. Louis Area Food Bank presents Illinois TEFAP Training. Welcome. The Emergency Food Assistance Program supplements nutritional need by providing USDA food to low-income and food-insecure neighbors. TEFAP is a federal program, but TEFAP administration varies from state to state. The Illinois Department of Human Services and the Missouri Department of Social Services run things differently. That's why we offer 2 TEFAP courses. If you serve TEFAP food in Illinois, you're in the right course. We're glad you're here. IDHS requires one person from every Illinois TEFAP distribution site to complete TEFAP and USDA civil rights training. That said, they encourage all distribution site staff and volunteers to attend. We agree. We think everything from serving neighbors to site inspections is easier when more people know what to do. We recommend new staff and volunteers complete these courses during their onboarding. If your service continues for more than a year, we'll welcome you back the month of your service anniversary. You may wonder, why does the USDA require us to take these courses every year? Their intention is to remind us of why we take extra care when serving USDA food. We want to provide equitable access to safe food for neighbors in need. Usually there aren't significant changes in TEFAP and civil rights rules from year to year. When changes do come up, routine training is how we keep everyone informed. IDHS asks Illinois food banks to provide TEFAP training based on the TEFAP distribution site manual. The site manual summarizes policies, processes, and documents we use. During this course, we'll review program standards. We'll explain program expectations for serving neighbors, site inspection, and food safety and storage. We'll call out what's stayed the same, and give you details about changes. Then we'll link you to the posters, forms, and the manual you'll need. As always, your questions are welcome. Let's get started. Serving neighbors. We believe that every person deserves nutritious food that supports a full life for them and their families. As generous as local donors are, the need is still greater than the supply. Through TEFAP funding, the USDA purchases food and makes it available to Feeding America distributors like the St. Louis Area Food Bank. TEFAP helps fill the gap between local donations and the need in our community.
Do you know how many neighbors your site serves each month? Your site inspector will ask. Be ready.
When serving TEFAP neighbors, you'll notice we track participation in other USDA programs our neighbors may benefit from, such as TANF and SNAP. We'll talk more about these programs later. Some of our neighbors may also be eligible for USDA programs related to pregnancy and children like WIC, after-school meals, and the Summer Food Service Program. To connect neighbors with the most up-to-date information about USDA programs, follow our link to the USDA Food and Nutrition Service under Related Resources on our course page. IDHS has different rules for food pickup sites than for sites with meal service. The neighbor intake process isn't the same and monthly reporting is different. The USDA uses the information they get back from us to accomplish different things. Please, if your site serves meals and offers pantry services, make sure the food is properly separated and tracked as 2 programs. Thank you. Your effort has a real-world impact on decisions that benefit our neighbors. The USDA allocates TEFAP food by county, based on the number of neighbors with low or no income. A neighbor who lives in a different Illinois county might visit your TEFAP site because it's convenient to their workplace or is more accessible. IDHS says that's okay. Go ahead and serve them. IDHS considers anyone eating at a soup kitchen or shelter automatically eligible, no questions asked.
Think about these factors. There is a risk to neighbors when they provide personal information. We're glad they don't have to. Unhoused neighbors, newly arrived neighbors, or neighbors with disabilities may not have documentation to verify their identity or residence.
TEFAP partners providing meals submit meal service information in their monthly reports to the food bank. For this report, count meals served, not neighbors served. Count multiple helpings to the same neighbor as additional meals. Document how you track meal count, such as counting the number of plates neighbors took, or the number of trips they made through the line. TEFAP allocations are adjusted based on the number of meals each month. 10 neighbors might eat 12 meals, so meal count is a more accurate measure of the need than neighbor count.
If your site serves meals but doesn't offer pantry services, feel free to skip ahead to the next section of the course. The information in the rest of this section is only relevant for food pantries.
IDHS requires us to ask food pantry neighbors about residency and income as a general check that we're meeting the need the USDA identified. That said, the rules are flexible. IDHS prioritizes filling a need over residential requirements. You may serve residents from outside your county. This is good news for us. Our area has a lot of cross-county traffic flow. Neighbors are entitled to TEFAP food at least once every 30 days, so you don't have to turn away a neighbor just because they're from outside your usual service area. In fact, if it's a neighbor's first visit, we're required to serve them, no matter where they live. IDHS reminds us that TEFAP pantries may not require neighbors to get a membership or a referral from an outside agency. Also, TEFAP pantries may not charge fees. TEFAP sites may use 3 different neighbor intake processes. All are completed before neighbors collect their food. The signature sheet. The proxy statement. Data entry in computer software. Your site may use all 3 methods to document your neighbor's identity and TEFAP eligibility by income and address. We'll describe eligibility first, then cover how to document it. No matter which documentation method you use, you'll notice your site isn't required to verify income, identity, or residency. Sites are prohibited from verifying income. IDHS prohibits TEFAP sites from asking neighbors for their social security cards, pay stubs, or other income data. Instead, ask if they're below the income limit for their household size, yes or no. Verifying identity and address is allowed, but IDHS limits this process to protect neighbor data and access to TEFAP food. TEFAP sites that verify may check these documents: a state ID card, a driver's license, or mail such as a letter from a landlord or a utility bill. Most sites do not verify identity or residency. As with income, these sites ask for the minimum information, name and address. Why not verify? To follow civil rights laws, we treat everyone the same. That means if we ask one neighbor to verify that they're who they say they are, we're required to ask all neighbors, every time. Newly arrived or unhoused neighbors may not have proof of residence, but they're still eligible for TEFAP. For unhoused neighbors, write "none" on the address line of their intake forms.
Think about this situation. Socially, it can feel awkward to ask a well-known unhoused neighbor for documents we know they don't have every time they visit.
The Illinois income limit for household size can change each year, based on 2 factors. First, the Federal Poverty Guideline, or FPL. TEFAP food is available to households with income levels below the limits the federal government sets each year for the nation as a whole. Then there's the percentage. States may multiply the FPL by a set percent to help more neighbors qualify. Based on these factors, every year IDHS prints a new Illinois income chart on their intake forms.
For current eligibility, always check the dates on the signature sheet and the proxy statement. Updates to the chart in this course may lag behind updates the state makes.
IDHS recommends that staff and volunteers pre-fill the food bank name, distribution date, and pantry name and address. To meet program standards, these spaces shouldn't be left blank. It's also okay to fill out the signature sheet for neighbors. Refer to the income chart and ask the neighbor if their household is below the income limit for its size. If they say it is, print the neighbor's name. Capture their household size and SNAP status. Enter an address on their first visit or a new one if it's changed since then. No signature is required. Signature sheet is a legacy name, and no need to send paper to the food bank, just keep this form on site. TANF information is only required if they're participating that day. The TANF program is not available year-round. What if a neighbor can't come and collect food for themselves and someone else offers to collect it for them? IDHS allows sending a proxy, a substitute, to collect food. Under the USDA, they established a statewide procedure using a proxy statement so everyone benefits in the same way. The proxy statement replaces the signature sheet. Proxies don't complete both. The proxy statement is valid indefinitely. Proxies complete a new form when there are changes, such as when a neighbor moves to a new address. Neighbors may have as many proxies as they like, they just need to complete a proxy statement for each one. Proxies may serve more than one neighbor. We'll go over how to set up a proxy to help a neighbor next. Notice that the proxy process requires 3 signatures and 3 dates. The proxy brings the form to the neighbor. The neighbor enters the same information as the signature sheet, plus their signature and the date. The proxy brings the form to the pantry. The proxy completes, signs, and dates their parts of the form. Pantry staff or volunteers review the form to make sure the blanks are filled in, sign and date the form, and file it on site. We just covered eligibility practices and how to document them using pen and paper. Digital intake can save both time and space. If your site is already collecting information using computer technology, congratulations. Monthly reporting is going to be much easier. Here's what you need to know. The proxy process isn't paperless. There's no digital proxy statement at this time. The signature sheet may be fully paperless. Please check that your site's process captures exactly the same information IDHS requires on the signature sheet. We recommend keeping current paper copies of signature sheets on hand. In the event of power, internet, or equipment issues, you'll have a backup method ready to keep neighbor intake moving along. You can complete data entry later. Interested in going digital with your TEFAP intake? Ask the St. Louis Area Food Bank to onboard your site to Service Insights on MealConnect. Whether you're doing a full conversion from paper to digital, or simply looking to upgrade software, Service Insights on MealConnect is available to you. It's free. Feeding America makes this possible. The food bank provides training and launch support. There's a place to track your proxies. Just make sure you filed a proxy statement in the classic paper with signatures way.
In the words of an Illinois TEFAP partner, we started using Service Insights last summer, and we love it. The food bank made the process so easy.
Monthly TEFAP reporting includes household information we collect during neighbor intake. Household size informs the USDA how many neighbors TEFAP food reached. For household size, note the number of people who eat there. For TANF, note the number of children aged 18 and younger. Lastly, note if the neighbor is a SNAP recipient by checking yes or no. Next, we'll explain why we collect data about those programs. The TANF program, or Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, primarily serves children when school is closed for the summer, usually June, July, and August. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services awards TANF funds to IDHS. Based on the availability of TANF funding, food banks purchase nutritional commodities in bulk for TEFAP sites. Together, We distribute TANF items like cereal, peanut butter, and milk. During neighbor intake, we only document the number of children in a household when TANF distribution is active, not year-round. We may not give out TANF food without getting this number first. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. As part of USDA program outreach, we track participants, distribute SNAP applications, and provide contact information. We also help neighbors with the application process if they wish.
IDHS provides us with these talking points when explaining SNAP to neighbors. SNAP offers nutritional assistance to millions of people. Neighbors get a SNAP card they can use at grocery stores to buy food. Regardless of SNAP eligibility, neighbors can continue to get food at their pantry.
The main rule that guides distributing TEFAP food is, mix it up. Distribute TEFAP foods in combination with food from other sources. TEFAP food may not be distributed separately. The monthly report summarizes information from neighbor intake, reports operating time, and tracks how well supplies met demand. Make sure to support the staff member or volunteer who takes responsibility for completing the report. Take the time to do neighbor intake correctly, and store their records carefully.
New in 2024, food pantries enter monthly TEFAP reports online. Say goodbye to postage costs.
Site inspection. There are more than 680 TEFAP distribution sites throughout the state of Illinois. St. Louis area food bank partners are unlikely to host an Illinois site inspector often. It's possible for a site inspector to arrive and find that no one on site that day has prior experience with government site inspections. Don't be surprised. Be ready. In this section, we'll prepare you for site inspections. We'll go over IDHS's site inspection checklist and call out what's changed. Please share what you learn. To receive TEFAP food, each site signs a contract that gives St. Louis Area Food Bank, IDHS, and USDA inspectors the authority to conduct unannounced inspections. Site inspectors will have identification to show they're who they say they are. No additional paperwork or permission is needed to give them access. Please let all staff and volunteers know it's okay to let them in. Each of these groups sends inspectors. St. Louis Area Food Bank. Partner Relationship Coordinators visit network partners routinely. Their goal is to provide program support. Health Department. The Health Department is mainly concerned with food safety in the community. They check that local codes are satisfied. State. IDHS reviews USDA program compliance at Illinois sites. Federal. The USDA reviews USDA program compliance all across the nation.
Government inspectors do not have to announce their visits ahead of time. The USDA made unannounced visits to some Illinois partners in 2024. IDHS site visits may be announced or unannounced.
IDHS visits TEFAP sites routinely, but they don't necessarily visit the same sites every year. Their goal is to visit your location at least once every 4 years. State inspectors want to know what our neighbors experience. They want to come during hours when neighbors are being served. Site visits give inspectors an opportunity to verify hours of operation. We'll explain what that means and show you how it impacts the site inspector's assessment of your site. The USDA regulates hours of operation. This phrase causes some confusion because in the food business, operations include activities like receiving, restocking, or preparing food. The USDA's hours of operation refer to a consistent, publicized schedule for serving neighbors, like dining hours at a restaurant or open hours at a grocery store. TEFAP sites can't require neighbors to make appointments. To maintain access, TEFAP sites are required to be open to neighbors at least 2 hours per week. Like grocery stores and restaurants, TEFAP sites publicize their hours in a variety of ways. Reliable information is critical for our neighbors. Site inspectors want to see that your site's open days and hours are the same in each place they're posted, such as on a sign outside the entrance. IDHS encourages sites with marquee signs to post hours there if possible, on a clearly visible sign inside the site, and online at Find Food Illinois, Feeding Illinois, and the food bank's website, Vivere. Checking and updating posted hours is a small task with a big impact. Partners who prioritize this task know it's not just compliance, it's mission critical. Your work makes a big difference. Thank you. Common exceptions to regular hours are holidays, rural exemptions, and emergencies. Holiday closures are a predictable exception to regular operating hours. Make sure reduced holiday hours or closures are broadly communicated in advance. If staying open 2 hours a week becomes a burden, sites may apply for a rural exemption. This is a special pre-approved exception that allows reduced hours, so partners in sparsely populated rural areas can continue providing effective distribution of TEFAP. Site inspectors may ask about this, so be sure everyone at your site knows what it means. Emergency closures occur at unpredictable times, but we predict they will happen. Think about how often we see severe weather alerts. Prepare ahead and plan how to communicate. Online, there's an option to post phone numbers along with hours of operation. During emergency closures that impact only your part of our metro area, a phone number to other sources of help can be a lifeline. The food bank would like to see 2 phone numbers on posted signs and online. Include the official phone number for the distribution site, plus a backup number neighbors can call when the site is closed. Acceptable backup numbers include the St. Louis Area Food Bank's number, 211, or a cell phone number answered by site staff or volunteers. We found that 211 does a good job serving neighbors. Their resources go beyond locating emergency food to help with other needs. During emergencies such as flooding, neighbors may need several types of help all at once. Earlier we mentioned the site inspection checklist. Officially, IDHS calls it the TEFAP Distribution Site Observation Form. To prepare TEFAP partners for site inspection, IDHS includes a copy in their site manual so everyone knows what to expect. If you wonder if your manual is up to date, check the link here on our course page and ask us plenty of questions. When in doubt, our partner relationship coordinators will get you answers. It's critical to review the most up-to-date IDHS checklist and get your questions answered ahead of a site inspection. IDHS made changes in the 2020s that expanded their checklist. We'll call out some of the recent changes here. For those of you who are new to site inspections, we'll explain what some of the older checklist items mean as well. General information questions haven't changed. If you were inspected today, could you answer them? The inspectors may ask any person, even the newest volunteer, for answers. Did you know that inspectors check inventory to see if sites are successfully moving food out into the community? Ideally, you won't have food on hand longer than 2 to 3 months. More than 6 months. Ask the food bank for help.
For those of you who are new to site inspection, the checklist isn't set up where yes always means pass and no always means fail. Yes and no describe how you operate, and for some questions either one could be an acceptable practice. There are likely to be follow-up questions so you can explain. If needed, the inspector can document why the practice is acceptable in comments.
The public awareness questions should look familiar from the civil rights course. At TEFAP sites we're required to display the USDA's and Justice for All poster, which contains the full non-discrimination statement. You may remember that posting hours of operation also meets a civil rights requirement to maintain effective, public notification about a USDA program. If your signage mentions TEFAP or USDA food, include the non-discrimination statement as well. By now you may be wondering, should I be taking notes? That's not a bad idea. IDHS took great notes for you in their TEFAP distribution site manual for food pantries, soup kitchens, and homeless shelters. Besides being a good reference after this course, here are 3 more reasons to get a copy of the newest site manual. IDHS requires that this manual is kept on site, and site inspectors may ask about the manual during site inspection to see if typical volunteers know about it and can show where it's stored. The manual contains a copy of the site inspection checklist so everyone can see it. Check the dates on the cover to make sure that the copy is current. If it isn't, check the links on the course webpage, or contact the food bank for assistance. You may be thinking, didn't there used to be more? There are only 3 posters on the checklist, and Justice for All, Hours of Operation, and the site manual. True. There have been many rapid changes in the 2020s. For example, in September 2023 the USDA canceled the requirement for religious organizations to display the written notice to beneficiaries and provide referrals. In July 2024 they reinstated the requirement with clarification about referrals, updating the process to better align with existing law. The state of Illinois publishing cycle for their site inspection checklist fell in between those dates. For partners who serve from locations where religious activities take place, there is one more poster than the checklist shows. We'll look at that next. By law, TEFAP sites where religious activities like worship, instruction, or proselytizing take place must offer USDA food distribution in a separate space or at a separate time. The USDA requires these sites to provide the written notice of beneficiary rights before neighbors participate in TEFAP. Use the notice in one or both of these ways. As a poster visible to all entering the TEFAP site. As a flyer provided to neighbors at each distribution. As of 2024, IDHS prints referral information directly on the notice. If a neighbor asks to be served elsewhere, please direct them to contact information at the end of the page, shown here. The red poster has been discontinued. IDHS dropped their requirement to display the prohibited activities for issuance or receipt of federal food commodities poster. Posters will not be printed going forward. Still in effect, the activities mentioned in the poster are still prohibited. The information is correct. Partners may continue to display this poster if they wish. This item has been removed from the site inspection checklist. The teal and blue posters have been discontinued. Please discard the income eligibility guidelines and the notice to program participants posters. They contain outdated information. IDHS dropped their display requirements completely. These posters will not be updated and printed going forward. They have been removed from the site inspection checklist. After completing this course, please look around your site. You may have some updating or discarding to do. The program procedures questions haven't changed. This course prepares you to answer them, but the wording is a little different. Documentation for the individual means signature sheets and proxy statements. Please show site inspectors any forms they ask to see, paper and digital. E-signature is just IDHS's way of saying, names entered by keyboard. They're not expecting a touchscreen drawing signature. We'll come back to the last 2, grayed out, questions, together with safe food storage. Whether partners collect information on paper or digitally, site inspectors expect that all documentation is stored and accessible on site. Inspectors check documents from the current year and 3 previous calendar years. To save space, it's okay to discard outdated records. If the current year is 2024, all records dated 2020 and older can go. All records dated 2021 onward should be available for review. Here's a list of the records the food bank looks for during site inspections. Neighbor intake records and monthly report. TEFAP invoice for each month. temperature and pest control logs. Copies of food safety certificates. Most recent health inspection report. Flyers, newsletters, or materials that mention USDA or TEFAP, and training documentation. In 2024, IDHS expanded program integrity to include civil rights questions taken directly from Food and Nutrition Service Instruction 113-1. This is a major change from the past, when only the first two questions appeared here. We covered FNS Instruction 113-1 rules related to these inspection questions in our civil rights course, so we won't cover them again here. Other line items concern general building maintenance and haven't changed. Next, we'll cover food safety and storage. At the same time, we'll review the three remaining areas of the site inspector's checklist: dry storage, cold storage, and soup kitchens and homeless shelters. Food safety and storage. Before we begin, we want to make clear that this TEFAP course provides a basic overview of food handling and food safety. Food safety certification is a separate course. The St. Louis Area Food Bank offers ServSafe's food handler training for food banking, free to all volunteers and staff. Combined, the course and certification exam take about 2 hours to complete. One certified person needs to be present during TEFAP distributions to meet USDA regulations. Having many certified volunteers makes meeting this requirement easier. Some volunteers may have food safety certifications from other places. Contact St. Louis Area Food Bank to get these certifications on file for your distribution site. Site inspectors check certifications and other food safety documents, such as logs. Site inspectors check temperature and pest control logs. IDHS does not provide forms for logging, leaving it up to partners to create their own logs. To help, the St. Louis Area Food Bank created a temperature log for partners. Some partners use this form already. New in 2024, the food bank created a pest control log for partners. If you aren't using one already, this log may help you get started. A link to each log is available on the course webpage for downloading and printing. We mentioned earlier that we'd return to program procedures. When site inspectors review food storage practices, they check that systems for keeping food safe to eat are in place. They want to see logs that document routine checking for signs of pests or temperature control issues. Contact information for professional help, like a pest control company, should be readily available. Invoices document the handoff from the food bank to partners. Count the TEFAP items as you accept them. They should match the quantity printed on the invoice. The St. Louis Area Food Bank works hard to ensure food reaches partners in good condition. The invoice also transfers responsibility for food condition from the food bank to partners. Before parting ways, check: does the food look okay? Get in touch with the food bank immediately if you suspect missing food, pest activity, or product damage at receiving. Accept the food after you've resolved any issues. Then, store your invoices. Like temperature and pest logs, site inspectors review invoices. Cleaning TEFAP sites is similar to cleaning commercial kitchens and restaurants. TEFAP sites must comply with state and local laws, policies, procedures, and warehousing standards. Site inspectors check to see if food containers, shelves, and floors have been wiped clean of food spills. Pests will nest in packaging, so they'll also look to see how cleanup is handled generally. Food storage equipment should be well lit and positioned for cleaning. Positioning dry storage shelves 4 or more inches away from walls makes it harder for pests to nest in corners, because nesting materials and dry spills fall to the floor. Shelving adjusted to 6 or more inches above the floor leaves room for brooms and mops to reach under shelves and keep the floor clean. Organizing TEFAP sites is similar to organizing a grocery store. We reduce the risk of bacterial and chemical cross-contamination by keeping goods separate and contained. Be sure to clearly separate non-food items from food items. In addition to food, we often distribute household items like soap and laundry detergent. Keep cleaning products on a separate rack, or at least on a lower shelf than food items. Well-organized storage is not crowded. In dry storage, maintain at least 2 feet of clearance above food on the top shelf to prevent overheating. Food should not be stored in direct sunlight. Air circulation around food in cold storage is also important to maintain the correct temperature. In 2024, IDHS added a question to cold storage: are all temperature logs posted near cold storage devices? Refrigerators and freezers must have working thermometers. Checking and logging the temperature is a routine task. Refrigerated foods should measure 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Frozen foods should measure at or below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. While checking temperatures, we can also verify that storage containers are accurately labeled with the contents and a date. In 2024, IDHS reworded questions about dry storage. We talked about most of these items, but you might be wondering what site inspectors mean by, does the inventory seem appropriate for service area? If your site serves neighbors with dietary restrictions, it's appropriate to be flexible and adapt to honor their restrictions with a mix of foods that still meet their nutritional needs. It's inappropriate to limit nutritional offerings, such as protein. We'll explain FIFO food rotation next.
Tina accepts fresh donations. 1 bag of apples and 2 boxes of tomatoes were left in the cooler from yesterday. Tina puts away the new apples and tomatoes. Tina made a mistake. When new deliveries of food come in before shelves are completely empty, we rotate for freshness. At the end of the day, 2 bags of apples and 5 boxes of tomatoes are left. Yesterday's product is still there.
To rotate food, begin by removing yesterday's food. Then, put away today's delivery at the back of the shelf. Return yesterday's items to the shelf. Now the items that arrived in first will be the first items out to neighbors today. This rotation rule is referred to as FIFO, or first in, first out. Rotating for FIFO prevents undated food from aging in storage.
Today, Tina accepts milk with an end date of March 20th. 2 cartons of milk with an end date of March 31st are still left from yesterday. She puts today's milk in front. She wants the food that expires first, March 20th, to go out first.
Tina is correct. First expired, first out, or FIFO, meets the same goal as FIFO. We don't want food to age in storage. We use FIFO and FIFO rotation methods for both cold and dry storage. When food isn't dated, such as fresh fruits and vegetables, we rotate food using the FIFO method. There are several types of end dates on TEFAP food: best by, sell before, or best before dates, to name a few. For USDA food, please treat them all as expiration dates. When food is dated, the USDA expects us to discard TEFAP product after its end date. No one wants to waste food, so checking end dates and rotating food is very important. Please let the food bank know if you have a lot of food about to expire. We'll work with you to distribute it another way and prevent waste.
Phoenix is a ServSafe certified food handler who accepts local donations of bulk foods. They often repack bulk donations of potatoes and apples to make portioning and storage easier for the smaller households in their community.
Repacking means transferring bulk food with low contamination risk into other containers. As a general rule, food exempt from FDA nutrition label laws can be repacked.
Fresh produce that has not been processed, such as whole fruits and vegetables, may be repacked. Gil accepts a TFAP allotment of frozen chicken. Each package contains 6 chicken breasts. He sees Phoenix at work and likes their idea. He begins to repackage the chicken, 2 to a container. Phoenix stops him. Gil, we can't repackage USDA food. It's got to go out in the original packaging.
Phoenix is correct. Just like a grocery store, we're prohibited from repackaging USDA food that is sealed, labeled, and stamped with packing or end dates under federal inspection at the processor. Repackaging raw and processed foods creates contamination risk. The IDHS manual and the TFAP contract both state that we have permission to repack food, but repackaging food is prohibited. IDHS has 2 main rules about receiving TFAP food allotments in Illinois. Collect TFAP food in a timely manner every month. Accept the mix of USDA commodities as given. Allotment size grows and shrinks depending on supply. At times, our fair share is not enough or too much for local demand. Local demand is always changing too. Unfortunately, refusing to accept the monthly allotment or choosing among commodities aren't options for this program. If storing large allotments becomes an issue at your site, contact your partner relationship coordinator to discuss your options.
Gil thanks Phoenix for explaining why he can't repackage food. I'm trying to solve a problem. This chicken is close to its end date. Neighbors want chicken, but for some the package is too large. Phoenix has an idea. Let me check with the food bank. Mary has permission to transfer some TFAP food to us today. Would it help you if we got permission for her to accept some of the chicken?
TFAP food distribution is tracked. If there's a recall, we want to know where that food is. The food bank can approve a TFAP food transfer between TFAP partners in the same county. We use the IDHS commodity transfer sheet to track TFAP food transfers when food is not moving through a location fast enough. This may be especially useful in regions where cultural or religious dietary restrictions are common.
Zeke checks a cheese donation. The boxes are all dated best by 3 months from today, so he accepts them. He opens the first box and puts away 36 packages of cheese. He opens the second box and sees mold through the plastic. He lifts out the cheese and discovers that the plastic wasn't sealed correctly at the factory. Yuck!
Zeke just identified out-of-condition food. The date on the product is never a guarantee that food is safe to eat. TFAP food handlers should remove unsafe or poor-quality USDA food and report it right away. The St. Louis Area Food Bank wants to know. Watch for poor packaging, such as bulging or rusty cans, torn bags, and leaks. Also watch for foreign material in product, such as metal or Band-Aids. In general, watch for odors or appearance that indicate quality issues. A food recall attempts to halt the distribution of unsafe food before it reaches the public. IDHS monitors recalls for all Illinois TFAP sites. The USDA classifies recalls in 3 ways.
Class 1, a reasonable probability that consuming the product will cause serious, adverse health consequences or death. Class 2, a remote probability that consuming the product will cause adverse health consequences. Class 3, consuming the product will not cause adverse health consequences.
In the event of a food recall, IDHS will inform all Illinois food banks. The St. Louis Area Food Bank will contact TFAP partners to explain the recall and any follow-up actions we'll need to take. In 2024, IDHS added site inspection questions and clarified their wording for soup kitchens and homeless shelters. The newest ones are: does the soup kitchen also operate a food pantry? If yes, is food properly separated and tracked for the 2 programs? Does the soup kitchen use non-porous countertops? Are workers required to empty shirt pockets and remove jewelry to prevent objects from falling into food? Your site may have always had these practices. If not, please be sure to reach out if you need help making adjustments. IDHS clarified 2 items about sinks. Are clean wiping cloths available adjacent to hand washing sinks? And, is the 3-step washing system clearly labeled? If your 3-step washing system isn't labeled now, here are some examples of labels. Lastly, in 2024 IDHS added a subsection for homeless shelters only. The questions are self-explanatory, but because they're new, please be sure all staff and volunteers are familiar with the answers. This ends our review of food safety and storage. As always, please bring your questions to your partner relationship coordinators. Next steps. St. Louis area food bank partners distributed over 2 million pounds of TEFAP product to Illinois neighbors in fiscal year 23. That's 2,277,898 pounds, to be exact. Thank you. Congratulations! You've completed your annual Illinois TEFAP training. Please follow the link provided to document your course completion. You'll also find links to the TEFAP distribution site manual, the civil rights course, and contact information. Get your questions answered. Thank you for partnering with us.
This course was brought to you by an AmeriCorps service member.